Welcome everyone back to Straight from the Paws. And today I have a very exciting guest with me, and her name is Deb Vigeant. She is our animal trainer, dog trainer at the shelter, and I'm really excited about having her here this afternoon. So, Deb, could you tell us a little bit about what kind of work you do at the shelter for the animals?
I work with many of the dogs, most of the dogs, particularly the ones who have come in with behavior issues, or the dogs who have developed behavior issues as they have spent time in the shelter. So, and I try to work them through it so that when they're adopted, they'll be as close to a perfect pet as they can be.
Yes, we do like perfect pets, don't we? What about some of the enrichment that you do at the shelter for the dogs?
So the dogs at the shelter don't get a lot of socialization. It's just the nature of the beast. And they don't have a lot of activities. And they need both those things. So in addition to just basic obedience and things like that, more importantly really is to do structured walks to get them out, but also get them out walking in a way that's conducive to being a good canine citizen. And it helps them get exercise, and it helps their minds focus on something behavioral. We do nose work, which is just a fun game where they look for things in an environment. We have an area behind the shelter that has some old cars and things, and we hide pieces of food and we let them search them out. So again, it gives them something to think about and something to do. We also do work with them while they're actually in the shelter, in the kennels, to help them calm down and stay calm while they're there, because it's a long day, it's a long night, and they get very agitated. So we play little quiet games with them, so when they're being good and they're quiet and sitting down, they get a treat, and myself and the staff try to do that as much as possible.
And let's not forget, I would be very remiss if I didn't mention this. Your husband Peter is also out there helping you all the time, and he does a great job. You also do some foster care for the animals, both of you. So you have definitely both been a great asset to the shelter and greatly appreciated by all the animals there. I know that everyone that you work with, and even the cats that you walk by and socialize a little bit with too, and I know the staff really appreciates what you're doing. You're one of the trainers that we have. We do have another trainer and do different things, but you really are there on a daily basis, and you do a lot of work with Diane out in the community and a lot of different things. So I'll tell you, you do so much, it's incredible. I know today you brought a guest with us, and I'd like to have Beverly, our board of directors, bring Nanya over, and Deb is going to do a little bit of demonstration for us, I hope.
So Narnia is a fantastically tempered dog. She has a great temperament. As you can see, she's rough around the edges.
Rough around the edges, that's okay.
But she has the potential to be a terrific dog. She hasn't had a lot of formal training. But she knows what it means when she sees a treat bag. So what we do with a dog like this is very gentle and all positive. Just reward her when she's good, and usually let her loose. Usually she'll be, see, this is what we don't want. So we either ignore this, or come here, Narnia. Come here, Narnia. And we wait until the good behavior comes. Sit, where we help her along. And that's it. And eventually, sit, just give her a little tiny tap, nothing big, just to let her know that, oh, she sees herself on TV. Let her know that we don't want that behavior. So she came in recently, and she hasn't had much training, as you can see, but she's very smart and she's very motivated. And as soon as she figures out what to do to get her treat, she's more than happy to do it. Sit, Narnia. Good girl. So with a dog like this, we just basically want to tell her what we want and either ignore or gently discourage what we don't want. And she's perfect.
Well, she's just kind of sitting there and just looking at you, checking everything out. I think she's, posing for the camera, I think, today. Look at that.
She is.
She's a ham. And so far, you said she's started work with her, so she's probably going to be up for adoption soon?
She is. She's
awesome.
Up for adoption. She's gentle. She's sweet. She loves everybody. And she just needs to learn a little bit of doggy manners, and that's all she needs. And she's all set to go home.
Well, thank you, Nanya, for coming on. Okay, you're looking at Bev because you know Bev might have something for you too. Okay. Oh, in the treat bag. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bev.
Okay.
Bev is our other board of directors, so she's a treasurer, and she helps us out on the show. Thank you very much for bringing Nanya on board. Okay, Deb, let's talk a little bit about shelter animals, the shelter environment, and how we get behavioral problems more in the shelter than perhaps in your own home.
Mm-hmm. So dogs are very social animals. They want to be with the pack. They want to be with the family. They want to be with the people. They want to be with the other animals. They're pack animals by nature. When they're in a shelter, they're all in, you know, a relatively small area, separated. They're separated from each other. They're separated from the people. And they're constantly seeing a lot of activity, people walking by. And what happens is they become very frustrated, and this high level of frustration results in all kinds of behaviors that are unfortunately somewhat typical of shelter life, and we do what we can to minimize it. But and the noise level as well. Some dogs are very, very sensitive to the noise level.
Let me interject for a minute. One of the things that I know that I love at our shelter is that what we do is that we just keep the radio going.
Yes.
You know, they say classical music, but I think a kennel where Jim has a kennel, he likes a little bit of jazz in there, and they seem to really enjoy the music when they're there. So I think the shelter staff also tries to do as much as they can to take care of the frustration of the animals. And
Oh,
all
they
that.
absolutely
And the
do.
Play yards.
Yes, they
and
absolutely
everything.
do. They come and go. They get out in the play yard. They get short walks. Sometimes we'll put little treat bins on top of outside of their cage so that they can be rewarded as we're walking by, as opposed to being frustrated. So all of those things contribute to a much quieter shelter. And yes, they like the jazz.
They do like the jazz, that's true. And I think one of the things that, you know, we're a very small shelter, and we sometimes have to pile some cages. Sometimes we get the little dogs in, and that can be difficult. But I think what you're saying is very true. We try to socialize them as everybody's walking by. Like this morning I was there, and they're doing cleaning, and they're talking to the dogs as they're going by, and how you doing this morning. And I think that just, it kind of gives them that family for a moment, even if it's just a moment in time.
Yep.
But it sort of gives them the connection that they need, and that's really important. But what you do is really highly important because of dogs like Nanya that, you know, come in and are really, you know, they're abused, abandoned animals. They don't know where their family is. If they, you know, they had a good family, you know, who's going to come after me now? It can be very, very difficult and stressful, as we said, for an animal. So what kind of other problems can occur in the shelter environment for the animals?
Well, they can become what appears to be aggressive. They will, out of frustration, will bark, they'll spin, they'll lunge. And again, most of that behavior is just, I want to get out, I want to play with you guys, I want to be with my pals. And so we don't see as much of that as we could see because we try to minimize it. But we see some of it. So that is somewhat common.
Now, we did mention before, I'm not sure if I mentioned it or you did, that you do take some dogs into foster care yourself. And could you explain a little bit about the whys and what you do when they're at home?
Sometimes we're not quite sure about a dog's temperament. We've had reports, sometimes we get reports from the family that there have been behavioral issues, some aggression issues, etc. Sometimes we don't see that in the shelter. It doesn't come out in the shelter, so we like to see them in a home environment. And then we can really see what the dog is like. And also to be able to prepare them to go home, to live in a home, and to work within the realities of a family life. You can't really get that at the shelter either. So many dogs do very well at the shelter and make wonderful pets and adapt extremely well. Some dogs, more sensitive, don't and really benefit from foster care, and some dogs who have what we suspect might be some intense behavioral issues, and they don't always end up being, but sometimes they're reported as such, and so we take them home to evaluate them and to work through them.
Right, and I think it's important to mention too that our manager, Erin, has been trained to do evaluations and stuff, and that she does confer with you if she has some concerns about a specific animal, because we know we do, and you and I have had this discussion many times about we have the status of a no-kill shelter, but it's very difficult to maintain that because you really need to know your dogs. And the time period that we have with the city, the animals that come in, is only 10 days. It's very hard to figure out a dog in 10 days. So it takes a lot of second guessing and third guessing, and again, very fortunate for us that we have someone like yourself and Peter that come in and are willing to take on the responsibility that you do. One of the facets I want to talk about today is that you also have become our go-to person for pet finders, and you do our videos. And that's just awesome. Every time there's a different video on for a different dog, I've got to get on Pet Finders and watch it, because you do a really great job with that. So you're not only doing the training, but you're also, you're out there promoting these dogs. And if anyone gets a chance, please go on Pet Finders and press a video on one of the dogs, and you'll see the great work that Deb's been doing with all the dogs. She does a fine job with that. Again, thankful for someone like Deb. We have, she went out and purchased the music rights to songs so that we can be able to, she can use that. She went out and bought a new camera. So being a volunteer sometimes can be rather expensive, to say the least, and time consuming, but it's for the love of the animals. And lastly, I'd like to mention also that you helped Diane, who's going to be coming out in a little while with one of our other dogs, and you work on Saturdays, and Peter does also, about promoting the animals. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we go to various places, but primarily my husband and I go to Petco, and we bring dogs with us, and it's wonderful because obviously it gives the shelter exposure out in the community. People come, they look at the cats who we also bring, and the dogs, and learn about the shelter, and it's very good for that. And it's also wonderful for the dogs to be out and about, and again, it's another way to kind of see how they react to different things. A place like Petco can be stressful for some dogs, so it gives us a lot of good information about the dogs. And we have actually adopted some dogs out from these events.
And some cats too.
And many cats.
And the cats too. So that's a win-win again situation for all of us. Okay, Deb, what kind of training and enrichment do you do for the dogs?
At the shelter.
At the shelter.
Well, again, I do. The main thing that these guys need is something to keep their minds and bodies busy. So I do a lot of brisk walking, not real strict heeling, but I walk them so they don't pull. So when they have a 20 or 30-minute walk with me, it's meaningful because they're not just exercising their body, but they're exercising their minds. I work on, basic commands. Some of them come in and they know, some of them come in and they don't know nothing. And so we all, myself and the staff, all work on sit, stay, come, just basic things to both help them at the shelter while they're there, enrich their time there, and to help prepare them later on. And then depending on the dog, there's other things we do. We have a dog here who came in with an issue of what we call resource guarding. He likes his food, doesn't want anybody to come near it, and can be a little bit reactive. So we're working through that with him so that he learns that the food that he gets is given to him, he's not to take it, and he's going to make a much better pet when he's adopted.
Okay, so let's take Jackson in. Diane, let's bring Jackson, a little model here, and have Deb do a little bit of work with him.
Hi,
Thank
Jackson.
you, Diane.
Jackson's a Jack Russell Terrier. He's about 3, and he's pretty friendly, but he came in with a little attitude about owning all the food in the home. It's one of so
I can understand that, Jackson.
Yes, we all can. So one of the things we're working on with Jackson is just general patience. Sit, Jackson, sit, good boy, stay. We're just asking him to do a lot of just wait for what he wants, wait for things, so that he's not ready to devour the food and mow down everybody in his path. So this is a little game, and they eventually really like this game. Stay, we drop the food, stay, Now he's looking at me, asking me, what would you like me to do? And I say, okay, now you can take it. So that's what we're doing with Jackson.
Good job, Jackson.
Jackson actually, his thing is usually when he finds something on the floor, he claims it. And so this is no, stay. Good boy, Jackson. Good boy. Okay. Good. And you know, these dogs, this is training, but to them it's a game, and he looks forward to it. When he sees me coming, he kind of knows. But we're all doing this with him at the shelter, not just me, because we need to do it when we feed him, when we give him his bowl, we make him wait, we make him stay until we tell him, okay, you can eat now. And in that way, he's learning how to respect the food and respect where it comes from, and he's learning that things don't belong to him unless we give it to him. Right? Down, down, lay down, lay down. Come on. Okay.
There you go.
We're not going to get that today, but anyway,
Maybe.
you're a good boy, huh? Down. Good boy. He's a very, very, very smart dog and highly motivated, wants to please. And once he understands, like most dogs, that there are boundaries and limitations in life, and he's very happy to adapt to it. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackson. Thank you for coming. Yeah, you want to stay? Is that it? You want to say, Diana, you ready for Jackson? Thank you very much.
Bye, Jackson. See you later. Let's go. Be good. I know.
He's looking for the treats.
Yes.
Smart dog.
So we use very high value treats because we want the dogs to be motivated to do what we ask them to do. And at least initially, you know, we use things like meatballs and cheese and hot dogs that, you know, they don't typically get.
That makes sense to me. Now, we touched it a little bit, but one of the questions we talked about was, what does the shelter do to minimize the stress at the shelter? I mean, the staff, you yourself, what other suggestions? Or if you even give people suggestions for maybe a shelter environment versus the home environment, what would you suggest?
That the staff do with the shelter?
Or, yeah, to start off with the staff.
Well, what you said before about taking a few seconds to stop and say hi, giving the dogs a few seconds of attention. When a dog is in a shelter environment, a 10 or 15 minute walk a day can make the difference between that dog really going stir crazy and not going stir crazy. So they're, you know, the staff are very very dedicated to that objective, and they try to get them out as much as possible. And it's not so much a function of how much time, it's a function of doing it regularly. The other thing that we do, and it is like clockwork, is the dogs have a structure. Every day is similar. They know in the morning, you know, it's time to go potty, then it's time to eat, then it's time to play. And when we put their beds down at the end of the day, they almost always lay down, curl up, and go to sleep. It's amazing how, you know, predictability is and structure really is very, very helpful, and it's really well executed at the shelter.
Which sometimes, I know, having my own little dog that I just adopted in December, sometimes in my personal life, I don't have that structure. So that makes it difficult sometimes for the animal. And so I hear what you're saying. So even people at home, if they go to work at a certain time and they bring the dog out at a certain time, that's really important.
Yes.
That's why my dog goes to daycare, because
Right.
it gives her more structure and she gets to do what she needs to do. And I think that's important. I think also too that what we're very fortunate again having is that, I don't know if you're aware about this, but I'm very excited. We have an Eagle Scout coming soon as school gets out, which is just around the corner. They're going to be able to come down, and we're going to hopefully have a koi pond built on our property and a little bridge, so that where the pathway that we have now, it'll make a complete circle so that you can walk around and go in that circle. And I think, again, that's also very helpful. Fortunately, We have new neighbors down the street, up the street, I should say, and that's been very difficult for the animals because it was very stressful. Even them building the houses on the street was stressful. But where do they go? And we need to be really aware of our neighbors and be good neighbors ourselves as a shelter. So we have that area, and I see you and Peter out there all the time training the dogs and working out there. I think that we're very fortunate with that. We're not a very big shelter, you know, but we do house a lot of animals. We house, you know, 40, 60 animals, dogs, and then forget them. We don't want to talk about the number of cats. So it can be a very stressful environment, like we keep saying. But yet you can go in there and see that the animals are doing okay, that they're comfortable in their environment. I know there's been times like if I go down and have a staff meeting and the dogs are barking because a little bit of it's been changed, a little bit of the schedule's been changed. Jim has to go in. He just gives out one whistle, and they stop. They all stop barking. The magic
whistle.
It does. It's amazing how he does that. I wish I could have done that when I was a teacher with my students. And he just gets them quiet, down, it's done, it's over, and they all pretty much are comfortable with what's going on. You know, I think that's very important, and I think we're very fortunate with the staff and yourself and volunteers like Peter that we have. Could you give some advice for people that are looking for sheltered animals? I know we say don't shop, adopt. So that's our first advice. But the second advice, what would you give as a trainer going into a shelter? How would you tell someone to go about looking for a certain animal?
It's really important. You know, there's all different kinds of people, all different kinds of families and households. Some have animals, some don't. Some have children, some don't. And it's just really important to find a good fit for your family. And if you're athletic and active, you know, you want a dog that will you know, would be compatible with that lifestyle, and also if not so much. We have several now who are very low energy, laid back, just happy to sit by your feet. Not always a function of age, but older dogs do tend to be a little calmer and a lot easier for families who aren't as active. And also for the pets that you have at home, if you have a very young animal who likes to play, you know, you don't want to bring in an older animal who might be bothered by that, and vice versa. So having a good fit is really important, and just kind of being open to knowing that it's going to take time for everybody to adjust, for the new dog to adjust, the new pet. And I have found from fostering so many dogs that it can take a week or two just to get into the rhythm of a new family. Okay. But they make wonderful pets.
They do, and
they do.
You made me think of 2 points I want to have you address. Could you talk about how the staff does the meet and greet with a current pet in their home? We'll talk about that first.
So when there's, and this is usually with dogs, although we do test cats out as well when there's another animal in the house. If someone already has a dog, we ask them to bring the dog in. We take the dog with our shelter dog that the family's interested in adopting for a little walk, so they can just kind of get to know each other on a neutral ground. Then we let them sniff a little. Dogs love to sniff, all ends, and that's a good thing. And then if all goes well, we'll let them play in a play yard and see, you know, if they're compatible. Sometimes some dogs will play really hard and other dogs may be bothered by that. So the meet and greet's really important, and it's important that it's done on a neutral piece of property, not actually in the shelter and not in the dog's home. So to give everybody a chance to see if there's really compatibility, and it works well.
And let's talk a little bit more, expand on the fact that when an animal goes home, I mean, they can call back the shelter staff and talk to them and ask for some information if they need to. But what we're finding is some people will have a dog home maybe for a month or two, and then they turn around and they say, you know, it's not working for us. The dog isn't working. It's not working. The performance is not going well for us and our family. It's not a good fit. And I understand that it takes time, but it also, you know, we're not shopping, as I said before. It's not we don't have a return policy. You know, once you've made that commitment to your family, that's why it takes a while to do the adoption process, because we want you to have the perfect fit. So if you're looking at a situation, again, meet and greet is important. We want people to come in and to get a good feel with the animal. You give you some time there. It takes a while to process the application. And the bottom line is that once you take that animal home, whether it be a dog, a rabbit, a ferret, or a cat, you are responsible for that animal. You can't go where you adopt a child. You can't go and say, okay, after a couple of months, this is not working for me. It's too much work.
Yep.
We have people say that to us. So I want people to understand it is a lot of work. And like you say, it takes a couple of weeks, but you are a professional, so that you more or less know what you're doing. Someone that's not, a month is not a long time.
No, it's not. And things happen along the way. I mean, we evolve as people, they evolve as they're animal beings, and we have to work through problems as they come up, and there is no perfect pet, and there's no perfect person, there's no perfect spouse, and it's important that people understand that. The rewards are huge, but the responsibility is too.
Thank you. That's a very important point I think we need to get out for everyone to hear. I really want to thank you for coming this afternoon and spending this time with me. It's really important. I want to maybe ask Diane and Bev if you'd like to bring our two little stars on board so we can say hello again and see how they're doing.
Narnia.
There we are. Narnia, you want to come say hello? Hello.
Hi, Narnia. That's a good girl.
Now don't forget, folks, these two wonderful dogs are up for adoption, and Deb has explained to you that it takes a little bit of extra work, a little time and effort on everyone's part. And you notice that Deb has purchased these on her own, and her and Peter, this Adopt Me vest, so people know who the animals are and what animals are obviously always at the shelter up for adoption. But sometimes we have adoptions pending on them. If you want to get in touch with us, please go to foreverpaws.com. And you can find us on Pet Finders. You can find us at Facebook. Diane takes a whole crew of people to Petco's, Taunton, Seekonk. Where else do you go? Dartmouth. And Dartmouth. You go to Melissa's Pet Depot.
Melissa's Pet Depot
Good.
in New Bedford.
Good
and
boy.
we'll be starting to go to Melissa's Pet Depot also in Haven, Mass.
Wow, so we have a lot of different places that we go. And they're out there all the time. We always have a lot of fundraising going on to keep the shelter going. If anyone just forgets about it, we're a 501c3, so everything that we do, and we appreciate everybody doing everything that they can for us, it's very helpful to our animals, so people understand that Forever Paws, we take the time, we make the effort, we do the best that we can for all of our animals, and you can see that Narnia has had it with you. She's showing you her better end, and Jackson is saying, okay, where's my treats? But I think Narnia's said, okay, I'm done being the star. I'm ready to go back home now. Narnia, you want to come out and say goodbye to everybody? Come on this way, sweetheart. Come on.
Narnia has the best nose on this earth.
Okay.
It's
all right.
so many colors.
Yes. Well, could you turn around so everybody could see you? You match.
Come here, let's see your nose. Come on, let's see your nose.
There you go. All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon or this evening, depending on what time we air. And thank you again. Have a great evening, and don't forget, straight from the paws.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt. There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Let's switch to Energy Star light bulbs and stop burning through cash. Saving energy saves you money.